Hello, Josh. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Well, my name is Connor Smith. I'm a student here, and my first question for you was about a project that you were on where you incorporated beer within the ingredients of a burger at Carl's Hardy and Jr. And I had to ask, like, how was that? Was it successful? In my head, I can't really fathom it. So,
I still can't fathom it. And it was 10 years ago now, or close to it. It's a great question. And honestly, it's a fun sales question too, right? Because in your career in sales, you're going to be given sales targets that may or may not make sense, right? And I ran Anheuser-Busch's on premise. So literally everywhere where you would ever have a drink on the premise reported to me. The bar right outside the university reported to me. Fenway Park reported to me, right? Every single place you would have a beer on the premise reported to me. And we were growing. And our CEO said to me, "Hey, Josh, I don't understand. In France, Subway is our number one on-premise account, and in Russia, it's Burger King. And you have all these Subways and you have all these Burger Kings, but you have zero sales. You have to drive sales in the fast food restaurants, which the United States is really, really hard because A, they don't have liquor licenses. B, they employ people under the age of 18, which makes alcohol a nightmare. And C, outside of the state of Texas, it's illegal to sell alcohol if you have a drive-through window. So that's my headwinds. And I'm given a sales target against hitting fast food restaurants with Budweiser, Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, etc. And we're going down this process, and I'm getting nowhere fast. I met with the CEO of McDonald's at nothing. CEO of Burger King, nothing. CMO of Taco Bell, nothing. And I said, this is impossible. No one wants to sell beer. The hurdles are too high, but I have this target. And in sales, you need to form alliances. You need to network yourself. People outside your organization that you can never imagine helping you someday may help you. And I'm in a board meeting with the president of Sargento Cheese. And we're talking about what each other are working on. And he said, believe it or not, we're working on beer cheeses. I said, really? He goes, yeah, beer cheese is pretty popular. I said, well, are you calling on the chains? He said, yeah, I'm calling on some chains. I'm even calling on some fast food chains. I said, let me ask you a crazy question. If I were to give you the Budweiser bow tie, do you think you can sell Budweiser beer cheese into a fast food restaurant? He said, I'm going to Hardee's Carl's Jr. tomorrow. I'll call you next week. I said, great. Meanwhile, I said to the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, I said, hey, if we got people to consume beer, but not drink it, would that work for my target? And the CEO says, what the hell are you talking about? Consuming and drinking are the same thing. Well, what if they weren't? Josh, I know English isn't my first language, but it is. But what if it wasn't? Can we just change the target to consumed beer in more than X number of locations for Y amount of sales? And they agree. Next day, I get a phone call from Kevin, the president of Sargento Cheese. He's like, I can't wait till next week. Neither can the buyer. We're super excited. We want to do a Budweiser beer cheese burger and Budweiser beer cheese fries at Hardee's Carl's Jr. in the next 4 months. And the only way it will work is if we could film our commercial at your brewery with the Clydesdale horses and ba-dum. And we made it happen. And the goal was to be in 1,000 fast food restaurants by the end of the year. We were in 1,200 fast food restaurants through this one initiative alone. Not a single sip of beer was drank. It was all eaten through the cheese. And where it gets really, really funny is at that wholesaler national meeting the following year, they keep talking about if the wholesaler in Sheboygan, Wisconsin can grow Budweiser 80%, so could the rest of you. And everybody started texting the wholesaler from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. What did you do to drive that much Budweiser? Tell us, tell us, tell us. And I got a text message, I hate you, followed by a text message, you know I love you, right? Because that's how much it affected his bottom line. So sometimes the best way to achieve your sales target is not to run straight at it. It's to understand what are all the possible detours and pathways to hitting that target. And it was a really fun program. Second highest grossing limited time offer in Hardee's Carl's Jr. history.
thank you very much, Josh. That answered my question.
Yeah. Jeremy, say a word so we can see if you pop up.
Hey, check one, check two, check one, check
We
two.
got you, buddy.
Phone. All
Thank
right,
you.
cool.
Appreciate it.
Hey Josh, I have a question for Josh. Can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Poon, and obviously, the restaurant industry is such a competitive field nowadays. But what do you see like biggest opportunity of growth in the restaurant industry nowadays?
Look, the restaurant industry, it's the same as it ever was. You know, people want to create all of these headlines, but at the end of the day, long before there was Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, the restaurant industry was the original social network. It was the original social network, right? When I was in college, when your professor was in college, we weren't swiping right. We weren't dropping into someone's DMs. We were going to a bar or restaurant. We were doing the work, right? And if you have good food and if you have good service and you understand your numbers, you're going to do all right. People talk about the chicken wars right now, which I get to be right in the middle of. And I remind people that the first meeting I ever attended in the restaurant industry in 2009, the hottest dish in the restaurant industry was Panda Express's orange chicken, fried chicken. In 2013, I took over Anheuser-Busch's on-premise. The hottest dish out there, Buffalo Wild Wings, buffalo wings, fried chicken, right? And then a few years before I came into this role, it was the Popeyes chicken sandwich. It's always fried chicken. Like that's what Americans want to eat. It's always fried chicken. So all we can really do is have a relentless focus on customer service. If our food is good and if our service is really good, we're going to win, right? Where that becomes the most interesting is actually in the other business I run, not this one, but Beer Park by Budweiser at the Paris Hotel, which was a project I did with Shaquille's agent when I ran Anheuser-Busch's on-premise. And then he said, hey, man, if you're not going to be at Anheuser-Busch, you got to come be with me and we'll run Big Chicken and we'll run Beer Park together. There, from a sales perspective, our waitresses are so dialed in and waiters that during football season, they make $600 to $800 a Saturday and Sunday in tips, right? And we have this thing so dialed in, trying to get you to understand the full guest journey, right? And by the way, in the restaurant industry, they're not consumers, they're not customers, they're guests. That's what we call them. But it's to a point when you're seated at Beer Park on a Saturday or Sunday during football season, and we are mobbed because we have over 1,000 seats at Beer Park. The person sitting you says, as you can see, we're slammed. Do you want me to bring you a bucket of Bud Light while you wait for your waitress? Selling from second one, right? But if you're sitting down with your friends, you're like, man, this place is awesome. I haven't even looked at a menu and they're already bringing me a bucket of beer, right? So for us, the restaurant industry is really that. Little things. Upselling matters, right? And this is where, from a technology perspective, who's been in a restaurant, like a fast food restaurant lately, and you see a kiosk, like when you have to order from the kiosk? Everybody, right? We have them too. The best part about the kiosk is the kiosk always upsells, right? Like if you went to the counter, they're not going to be like, would you like bacon for 99 cents? Would you like cheese for 99 cents? Would you like lettuce for 50 cents? Tomato for 50 cents? Pickles for 50 cents? The kiosk doesn't give a fuck. They're just going to keep asking you. They're just going to keep asking you. They're not going to look at a 400-pound person and say, maybe I shouldn't ask him if he wants a milkshake. The kiosk is going to ask if he wants a milkshake, right? And it really becomes incredible. Wherever there's a kiosk in place, on average for us, you're going to spend $2.25 more than you would have without that kiosk. Think about that from a sales perspective. The machine is already winning. And it's not because the machine is better at the power of suggestion. The machine just knows to suggest.
It's chicken. It's fried chicken. I like fried chicken.
That's right.
Sure you guys get that. Hey, my name is Jeremy Funk, and I went to Brandeis just down the street from you guys. While we're talking about restaurants, since I hear that that's a little bit of a slant to this point, it was in Waltham, actually, at Bison County Barbecue. Most of you guys probably haven't seen it. I think it went out of business around COVID times, but that's where I got my start in sales. Frankly, I realized very quickly that an average server or bartender would do about 15 to 18% in tips. And if you do that on $1,000 worth of sales, then you make $150 to $180. But if you can give just a little bit more and be slightly better and relate to customers on a personal level, if you can upsell them, you can both increase your sales and then increase your commissions, which is the tips. So if I could do 21 to 23%, then on the same sales, I could make $210 to $230. And, the Waltham, it's become a little bit more affluent than it was, but we'd have customers coming in from Newton, lots of money coming from Newton, right? You'd have Celtics players coming in when they used to practice in Waltham. And there was opportunity to both upsell and then make additional money on commissions or tips. So I learned sales right down the street from you guys, and it all comes back to the numbers and having exquisite customer service. So
by the way, on that point, that $40 extra in tips is the difference between whether or not that server stays with the restaurant or goes down the road somewhere else.
Exactly. And even better, whether they are then requested by the party when they come in the next time, which further secures your place at the company, at the restaurant, at the organization. A little bit about me. Again, Jeremy Funk. I run a company called Funk Futures. You could see the logo behind me, shameless marketing and self-promotion, but you've always got to be branding. I grew up in Plymouth, New Hampshire, a couple hours north of where you guys are sitting right now. Went to Brandeis, as noted, moved to Boulder, Colorado, sight unseen, about 21 years ago. And I'm still here. I've built a great career in sales. I love sales, marketing, leadership. I'm passionate about all of those subjects. Professor Young has had me come in now, I would say, maybe 10 times, 11 times to speak to the Bentley students. And you guys have such an amazing opportunity ahead of you to learn from such a skilled professional like Zev, who puts the customer first always, from people like Josh, who have built a strong, successful career in sales, people like myself, who have followed the journey both of individual contributor, sales leader, and entrepreneurship. We're here to be resources for you. So ask away, make the most of this time, guys.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for coming today. My name's Luke, fourth year student here at Bentley. When I was doing my research, Josh, I found that I think the motto was big food, big flavor, big fun. I might have found that in a different order. And then Jeremy, you were talking about how like you bring like fun and funk into like tech and energy sales, which I'm sure is a very hard thing to do, but you managed to do it. So I was wondering how you both like kind of find an integration of like bringing your authentic self to work and really like bringing your full self behind the mission of the company, both in the research as far as figuring out where you're going to work, and also day to day, making sure that you're staying motivated and really resonating with the mission of your companies.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was 17 years old, I got into college and my dad goes, "That's great. You're not going until you know how to sell." Right? Because if you are a doctor, you don't really know what's right or wrong with someone, right? Like you're selling them that you know. And if you're a lawyer, you're selling your clients innocent or guilt. And if you're a professor like Zev there, he's selling knowledge, right? So you have to know how to sell. So he makes me get this job. He got me the job going into freshman year of college. And I literally sold long distance telephone service when that was a thing in downtown Brooklyn before that was a cool thing, right? And every day I learned very fast. I had to wear a black dress shirt, not a white dress shirt, because black dress shirt, they assumed I was mafia. White dress shirt, they assumed I was INS. And they would talk to the mafia and they wouldn't talk to the INS or IRS, right? These are the little things you start to learn. But when you're selling something that bad, right, because you're going to 150 small businesses a day, if I could get 4 to say yes, I more than made a mind up, more than enough money that any other 17, 18-year-old would make in a day. But that meant 146 no's every single day, right? Like all of a sudden you're like, I'm not afraid to ask out the girl. I'm not afraid to apply for the job. I'm not afraid to do anything because I've been told no 146 to 150 times in a day. But in this climate, they had this expression and it resonated with me. It's still with me. And if you're going to pursue a career in sales, I really encourage you to think about it. They would walk around like a cult. It was definitely a cult. It's amazing I didn't drink Kool-Aid and that was it. But they would literally walk around screaming juice, like juice by you, juice by that guy, juice by him, juice by closing that deal. And juice stood for the simplest thing of all time. Join us in creating excitement. That's it, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what sales is really about. Like no one's sitting in their office today saying, I hope someone comes in tomorrow and sells me a widget or a new medical device or a new pill, or in my case, beer or tampons or trash bags or whatever. They get excited by your excitement, right? And if you come in with a client first approach and say, hey, I'm here to help you. And holy cow, am I excited to be here and talk to you about this because I'm excited to help you. People are going to want to listen to you a little bit more, right? So as I always think about Big Fun, and I get to work for Shaquille O'Neal, which is tremendous, and he is the captain of fun. For me, it's not about how do I create the next Shaq meme. It's really how do I create excitement? And the more excitement I'm creating, not just for Big Chicken, but also for Shaquille, the more the ecosystem feeds itself. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I love that. I like this question too. And I would say the word that you brought up that I want to lean to is, well, two words. One is authenticity and two is fun. I'm not going to say that every single day of your career is going to be fun, but I will say that on the days where you're not having fun, there's still something to be learned. There's still something to be gained that will make the future brighter and better for you. Authenticity in business and especially in sales to me is everything. One thing I want to make abundantly clear to everyone, especially those of you that are going to embark on a sales career, is I would really caution you not to try to play a part. If you go out there and you think that you need to dress a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way, and that's how you're going to sell, it's not going to work. People are going to see right through that shit right away, and they're going to know that you're not genuine, that you're not authentic. I was guilty of that early on. I thought that I had to appear a certain way, play the part of the salesperson, the slick talking, smooth suit wearing, carpetbagger salesman, Willy Loman type. I just want to tell you right now, that's not going to get you anywhere. Authenticity and true connection with your buyer persona, with the human being, is what matters. People do business with people. People do business with people that they like and that they trust above and beyond any product that they could possibly buy, right? So keep that in mind as you embark on your career, that you are your authentic self. Be the person that you bring to class, to parties, to lunches, and to hanging out with your friends and your family that you do to clients, and people will want to spend time with you and want to do business with you. And finally, as it relates to fun, well, you can't spell funk without fun. So what's the point, man?
Well, what does the K stand for then?
Strike them out, baby. And
Yeah, there you
put
go.
another one on the board.
Yeah. And by the way, to Jeremy's point, and if you guys haven't done this yet, it took me way too long into my career before someone coached me to do this. Try to draw for yourself, like, what are the principles of your own personal brand, right? You guys are all brands, right? And that brand is going to be, you're basically doing collaboration with whatever you're selling, right? So what are those key kind of guideposts, if you will, that define your personal brand? Now, if you look at my LinkedIn, every single post is tied to 3 or 4 common themes, and I never, ever deviate. And that's why the word authenticity is used a little bit with me in the restaurant industry, is because I understand what I want to be and what I don't want to be. And they're true to who I am. And I kind of leave all the junk out there and stay focused on those 3 or 4 key values that to me matter for the brand I want to be and the person I want to be.
That was really informative. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Sorry.
Hello, Josh. Hello, Jeremy. My name is Santiago, and I have a question for Josh. How's it working with Shaquille O'Neal, and what has he taught you about sales?
I mean, first off, I love when I get that question because everyone wants me to say, man, the guy is not that nice, right? Shaquille is the best. He is literally the best. He has people around him that get to play the heavy from time to time, myself included. But he's the exact guy you hope he is. He's the exact guy he is on TV. The only difference is he curses a lot more in real life than he does on TV. So Shaquille really is great. I think that the top two things that he taught me is first, well, three things. One, and it goes back to the previous question, you always have to be authentic. You always have to be the truest version of yourself. And that's why he is the exact person he is. We walk around a lot together and we always get mobbed because, you know, if I was a celebrity, I throw on a baseball cap like Jeremy has and no one knows who we are. You see him from a mile away. And I once asked him, I said, how do you do it? Like, how are you just always on? And he said, well, he's like, when you're my size, your only options are be the world's biggest jerk or be the world's greatest guy. And I chose to be the latter, right? Which is why he'll stop and talk to everyone. He'll take a photo with everyone. His team has to kind of like play the heavy to get him away because he doesn't want to let down that kid. He doesn't want to let down that person who came running from across the way solely to shake his hand or take a photo with him. The second thing he taught me actually has nothing to do with sales, but it's something I want to instill on you guys because you're going to come out into the workforce really soon. We do not believe in work-life balance in our company. Shaquille doesn't believe in it. I don't believe in it. Because work-life balance would say that you work certain hours and then you live certain hours and, you know, you hope it all balances on some weird scale. We believe in work-life integration. Right. I have a board member that knows that I will bring my son to hockey practice if I'm not traveling every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So he calls me at 5:05 because he knows I'm just sitting in the cafe of the ice rink or I'm in my car and I have 50 minutes to kill. And I have no problem talking to him for as long as necessary during that 50 minutes. That's work-life integration. Shaquille says all the time to all of the CEOs over all of his businesses, to be at your best in business, you have to be at your best in life, right? And it only works if work and life are together, integrated together, not if you're trying to balance some scale one after the other. And then the final thing that he's kind of taught all of us is sometimes all you need to do is smile. You smile and you get excited and you really believe. And people will do crazy things. We've yet to open a big chicken restaurant without a massive line out the door and around the building. And it's because people say, man, Shaquille O'Neal's restaurant's coming to my town. I know what he's about. Let's see if the restaurant holds muster to that. And that's ultimately my job, right? Is to make sure we're creating a brand worthy of his name, image, and likeness. And he's the best. I mean, his mom gives me a hug, refers to our business as the O'Neal family business. And I love that. We're building a legacy for him together.
Thank you for the answer. I also have a question for Jeremy. What's your definition of curiosity and what role do you think it plays in sales?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm sure this isn't going to be as exciting of an answer as getting to work with Shaquille O'Neal, but I will say curiosity to me is everything. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that there's no such thing as a bad question, but I think it's a lot worse to not ask a question if you have one and hold it in, right? Questions and requirements gathering in sales really is the job. It's not your job to pitch something to people, right? At least in a business to business environment. Your job is to be curious for a couple reasons. One, to make sure that they are the right fit for your product so that you don't waste your time. And two, to solve a business need for them, right? And to me, that all stems back to having an authentic and genuine level of curiosity in life and in business and beyond. So yes, if you are innately a curious person, lean into that and you will have success in sales and get the answers to what you're looking for simply by asking a lot of questions. 2 ears, 1 mouth. That's a very important phrase that you always need to keep in mind if you feel like you're talking too much in a sales environment.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lexi. I have 2 different questions. So first is for Josh. We were talking about earlier You sell these products like Budweiser beer, cheese fries, Budweiser beer, cheeseburger. How do you make sure that when you sell like at a corporate level, it makes the sales at each location? Like, how do you make sure that like the sales at the fast food level are like happening compared to like a sit down restaurant?
How do we make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, to give perspective, everyone wants to sell a consumer product into Walmart, right? Walmart is the #1 chain on earth. Walmart executes about 60% of the time. Just think about that. Think about all the lost revenue if you are not really, really working and hustling, right? So for us, what it always was how do we make sure that we are set up right, level by level in the organization? How do we make sure we have street reps calling on those Walmarts, our distributors on board, our Walmart buyer on board? How do we make sure we have the right marketing materials? How do we make sure we have the right pricing structure? How do we make sure we have everything? Because once you get the yes, that's the easy part, truthfully, right? The way you get the repeated yes is through ruthless execution, right? When I left Anheuser-Busch and I went to the 7th largest brewery in America, we sold brands like Labatt and Genesee and Seagram's Escapes and Magic Hat. Magic Hat was really big in New England for a really long time. If you grew up in New Hampshire, Jeremy, you definitely had more than your fair share of #9 back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
So there, when I came into they were averaging not great execution in beer. Walmart, it was 50%, give or take. Well, my company FIFCO was at 18%, right? And Walmart literally said to me, "Hey, you just came over from Anheuser-Busch, so we'll give you one try. But if you're not at like 40 to 45% minimum, this will be the last try we ever give your company, because we're tired of saying yes and you coming nowhere near the execution that anyone else can get." So we said, crap. So the unsexy side of sales, the sexy side is, hey, I'm going to go, I'm going to make my pitch, I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to do my presentation. The unsexy side is an absurd amount of relentless tracking, right? To a point that we had all 4,100 Walmarts. This is the address of the store. This is the wholesaler for the store. This is what's approved for that store. This is where the display should be. Then, we said, okay, we need if they bring in 10 cases of this SKU, we could assume that there's a display. I want the photo to verify it anyway, but any store where we've shipped at least 10 this week will count as a display. And Sunday hits and you have like 20% of the stores. And the next day I had 300 people call the wholesalers for the other 3,800 stores. Right. And then the next day you get another 300. So now you're at 600, right? And again, we then called 3,500 stores. You see where this is going, right? And on day 3, I got a phone call from our #1 distributor who had 70 Walmarts themselves down in Texas. And he goes, "Josh, your team is driving me crazy. What do I have to do to get them to stop selling?" And I said, "Execute, or stop calling." I said, "All you have to do is execute." He goes, "That's it. I execute this and you'll shut the hell up." I go, "If you execute this, you won't hear from me or any member of my team for 90 days. 2 days later, they were at 100% distribution at Walmart. As a program, we went from 18, the one before I got there, to 68, way above the company average of 50. By the time I left 3 years later, we were executing at 92% of all Walmarts. That follow-up is so damn important. The yes is the easiest thing to give. It's how you execute it that matters.
Yeah, and before you get to your second question, I just want to chime in that you would be shocked how many people in business and especially in sales just straight up don't do the work. Like, you can differentiate yourself by following up, by being proactive, by offering unrivaled support for whatever brand it is that you're representing. And Josh just outlined that perfectly. It doesn't really matter what the product is, but you can differentiate yourself just by showing that you actually give a shit. And if you do authentically give a shit, then you've got a real advantage over a lot of your competition. A lot of people are just trying to do their 8 to 5 and check a box and get their paycheck and go home. it takes so little to actually do the work, go above and beyond. And if you do that, you're going to differentiate yourself from 95% of your competition. A lot of it's just hustle.
Thank you so much for that insight. And then the second question I have is, we were talking a little bit about it today, but like in your opinion, what are the biggest differences between sales and marketing?
You want me to go, Josh?
Hey, you can start. I'll chime in next.
So in the business to business world, so I work in oil and gas technology and energy technology, and I work with a lot of innovators. The thing with innovative companies is a lot of them have technical leaders. Their founders are inherently not creative. And where they tend to fall short is with both marketing and sales. I look at marketing through a couple of different lenses. I think one is you have content creation, right? Are you putting out some level of video? Are you finding ways to create awareness for your brand? Are you getting out to events and creating a presence for yourself? Sales to me is purely about the execution and qualifying in and qualifying out business opportunities. At the best companies that I've worked for, sales and marketing sit under the same umbrella and are constantly sharing what's working and what's not working, both from a how is this content being received, how is this impacting the way that we sell. And I think one of the things that you will see, and as you get into your career, you'll observe this more and more, is marketing can make the salesperson's job easy. It can also make it difficult if they don't want to take the feedback from a salesperson. Now I'm a salesperson talking, so I'm going to see this through the lens of a salesperson, but I understand the role of marketing and just how important it is. Marketing should help open the door for salespeople and make it easier for you to articulate the value of whatever your product is that you're presenting to the market. So I think it's relatively straightforward, right? Marketing is there to create and cultivate a brand that people want to do business with, and then sales is the one that has to go out and get it.
I think one of the most interesting things I've kind of come to the realization of is the best salespeople have done 2 to 3 years in their career in marketing, and the best marketers have done 2 to 3 years in sales, because you're not really good at your function until you've experienced the other. I'm really fortunate in my career that I've worked for some people who are considered some of the best in consumer packaged goods in the last 25 years. Carlos Brito at Anheuser-Busch InBev, A.G. Lafley at Procter & Gamble, Don Knaus, the former CEO of Clorox, Ben Odor, who became Glassdoor's #1 CEO in the world, was my direct boss, right? And as a result of working for these incredible mentors, you pick up some things. And A.G. Lafley said it first, but Don Knaus then stole it. And he said, there's basically 3 moments that matter to a consumer in their journey: the point of desire, the point of decide, and the point of delight. The point of desire is where marketing owns, right? Like you're sitting at home right now and you see a commercial come on for pizza or chicken sandwich or beer or whatever it is. And whoa, I want to try that. That actually looks good. That feels good. I'm going to go on to DoorDash right now, right? Order that. That's the point of desire. That's what marketing really owns, is driving that desire. The point of decide is what sales owns, right? And that's, you're standing at the register, you're standing at the grocery store. The rep is sitting in front of you with the pad out with the order, right? Are you in or are you out? That's the moment, right? Would you like fries with that? Would you like to upgrade to a shake for an extra $3? Can I bring you a bucket of beer while you wait? All of these moments in the point of decide trigger A, how much you're going to spend, but B, whether or not you're happy spending it. And that's where sales comes through. And then the point of delight, you have that ice cold beer in your hand, you take a sip and you're like, man, thank God I'm here, right? It's that damn good, right? And R&D owns that, operations owns that, supply chain, the rest of the organization owns the point of delight. But if you're winning those 3 crucible moments, point of desire, point of decide, point of delight, you can build loyal customers. And that's ultimately what we're all trying to do. It's just understanding what your position is on the court. Marketing's the point guard. Sales is the center, right? You have other functions backing you up, filling out the team, all in pursuit of winning with that guest.
Thank you so much.
We could have a line. Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Josh. My name is Katrina Garcia. I'm a senior here at Bentley, graduating in May with my marketing degree, but I've always taken an interest in sales. So Jeremy, you mentioned that you have experience being a waiter. I've been waiting tables for the past 4 years, so I'm used to hearing no when I try to upsell or sell a special to customers. I'm in that setting of hearing no in a B2C setting. So I guess my question for you is, how do you deal with objections in a B2B setting?
Where do you work?
Breakfast place in Andover. It's a family owned. My uncle owns it. It's called Shawsheen Luncheonette.
Awesome. So this is family owned, right? So you probably have a level of like respect, passion, appreciation for the company that if you bring that mindset into the corporate world, will serve you extremely well. I did wait tables for a number of years, and I would say that it's a little bit less painful when somebody doesn't take your upsell in the restaurant world. Now, Josh may disagree with that, but I would say, if you have one shot at a business deal where you're selling business to business in a corporate environment and you get no, right? You really have to be prepared for how you rebut that. But I think to take a step back, it's how did you put yourself in position to get no? Did you uncover everything in the process within this sales process of requirements gathering to understand whether or not what your solution is the right fit for your organization? Then if the answer is no, and you felt like it was the right fit, yes, it should be painful. And yes, you should have some level of pain around getting that answer and figuring out what your rebuttal should be. But truly, I feel like I get a lot of my no's very early on in the sales process, and my close percentage is incredibly high, but I only pursue opportunities that I truly believe I have a chance at winning because I've gathered enough information about the opportunity to know that I should be the one to win that business deal with whatever it is that I'm offering. So I would really focus in on the discovery phase. And I'm sure Professor Young will get into all of this from a B2B sales perspective, really gathering as much information up front, eliminating any level of happy ears, right? Which is something that every early salesperson is guilty of, and really trying to figure out what could potentially go wrong. Why would they say no, as opposed to looking for things that would lead you to thinking that they'll say yes. Hopefully that makes some sense. But basically, when I go into a business deal, I look for reasons and think about why they won't do business with me as opposed to reasons why they will. Because in the end, the reason that they don't do business with you is very likely going to be one of those reasons early on that you just overlooked.
Got it. Thank you.
The restaurant industry, everything you're learning right now at that place will teach you everything you need to know from everything moving forward, right?
Totally.
Because I said it earlier, it's the original social network, right? The thing that guides the highest degree of sales, quite honestly, is indifference. If they feel you're pushing that for that sale, that upcharge, that whatever, they're going to immediately back down from you. But if you know, like, whatever dish is a good upsell for your restaurant, you'd say, hi, welcome to our restaurant. This is who I am. I don't know if you're interested. My personal favorite dish is this, but I'll give you a minute to look around the menu. Just something like that, right? Because if they're struggling, they're going to be like, man, she seems nice. She said this was her favorite dish. And now the gears are spinning. And even if they don't pick that dish, I'm not in the mood for that. What else would you recommend? Oh, yeah, I like this, and this, right? You need to understand every moment of that customer journey real fast. Who's heard of the chain Yard House? You know, the Yard House, Yard House is known for having 100 beers on draft. The number one beer they have is Bud Light in sales. And this was pre-Dylan Mulvaney, so maybe it's no longer, right? But the CEO at Yard House literally says to me, I'm taking Bud Light off. I have 100 beers. Somehow Bud Light is still the number one beer. And I said, before you do that, can we understand it? He goes, what do you mean? I said, spend a night with me. Let's go to Yard House. We will watch every guest transaction. And what we learned was 0 people were ordering Bud Light first. And I mean, no one was ordering Bud Light first. As a second beer, you get 1 or 2 people ordering Bud Light, not many. The third beer, people were either leaving or ordering Bud Light. So we actually turned it into a sales program for the wait staff, right? Because no one wanted to be the dick coming into 100 beer restaurant saying, I'll have the Bud Light, right? But if it's the fourth quarter of the Celtics game and you've drank your 2 big IPAs, you also don't want to go home, right? And you don't want to sit there not doing anything. So we turned it into a program where the waitress would or waiter would literally say to the guest, hey, you just crushed those 2 huge IPAs. Do you want a third one or maybe a Bud Light? What can I bring for you? And for the average guest, it was, I definitely don't want one of those big IPAs, but my waiter's giving me credit for the fact that I drank those 2 big ones. I also don't want to go home. I don't want to be the person asking for water. I'll do a Bud Light, right? And if you could do that 30 times in a night, that's $30 extra in your pocket, to Jeremy's point earlier. And that's how salespeople think. They compartmentalize each individual transaction and how to squeeze it. But to squeeze it, you really need to understand every single aspect of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I wanted to say one more thing too. There are so many parallels. I mean, like Josh said, everything that you could possibly want to know or learn about sales, you'll learn in a waiting tables or bartending environment. Like, let me give you an example. I was on a call with a potential investor for Funk Futures today. And during this call at 10 a.m., my son, who's 6, came in my office. I got a text on my phone, right? Kind of looked down at my phone. Somebody starts calling me. Doesn't this kind of sound familiar, right? Like somebody wants a coffee. Okay, I got to go to the back and make a coffee. But as I'm walking back there, somebody's grabbing me in the meantime saying, oh, I need a napkin, right? And then you're like, oh, crap, I didn't put in table 12's order. And before you know it, you got all these things. That's sales. Like the best salespeople are constantly juggling all these balls, but doing a tremendous job of executing on each of them. And if you can do that well from a restaurant industry perspective, you'll crush it in the sales world too. I promise you.
Hey, Jeremy and Josh, last question of the evening right here.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Hi, Jeremy and Josh. My name is Madison McCann. I'm a senior here at Bentley. And Jeremy, I was actually just in Boulder a couple months ago and loved it. So I'm jealous that you went there. But Jeremy, my question is for you. I want to know, what are the key sales and marketing strategies that helped you scale Seven Lakes Technologies from 1 million to 15 million in revenue? And what lessons did you learn from that experience?
I was relentless. You know, I was, first of all, I was passionate. I think passion is really important. I was a young guy at the time. You guys will think that this is old, but when I took that job, I was like 33 years old, which is young in the business world. And I was ready to go. I was ready to hustle. And for me, the competition would always kind of say, man, you were like a ghost. Like everywhere we went, you'd just been there the day before. I lived on airplanes. I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And I let the technology speak for itself. So there was beautiful user interfaces of all of the technologies that we had there. And I wanted to take a product-centric sales approach because I felt like the tech was so visually aesthetic, so appealing that people would have an interest in working with them. Now, it's very hard to scale a company from 1 million to 15 million in 3 years. There's no question about that. But being at every event, creating a network of passionate fans where all of a sudden your referral universe starts doing the selling for you, right? Ensuring that customer success is delivering on what you sold. And then before you know it, there starts to be this flywheel effect where there's a little bit of FOMO, right? I didn't know this company. This is a newer brand. What are they doing that's different? Why are those guys working with them and why are we not? So you start to shift the paradigm from why would we do business to this company for why are companies doing business with them to why are we not doing business with them? And that started to really warm up every sales opportunity that I went to. But a big part of it as well was selling to the C-suite. So I've done a lot of selling in my career. And the biggest deals that I've done, as you can possibly imagine, are with CIOs, CFOs, COOs, CEOs of companies. If you can get them to be supporters of your product, think about the network that they're in. Who do they play golf with? Who do they go to dinner with? Whose wives hang out because they don't have to work during the day? And then those people start talking and that network starts to work. So I took sort of a catch-all approach. I wanted to showcase the beauty of the product. I wanted to be in as many places as I could possibly be in person, selling in person, be in as many events as I could possibly be in. But then it all comes down to delivering value, right? If the product is delivering value, companies will talk about that. They don't get as sucked into the pomp and pageantry as they do about value creation. So, it's probably a much longer conversation for you and I to have candidly over how I scaled and built that company, but it wasn't just me, and it was tireless, it was relentlessness, and a team that really wanted to support my every move.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, before we leave, I want Josh, if possible, to tell one story. I think that this is a great segue into next week, but it also just puts a bow on what we've discussed tonight. So I'm gonna say that this is the story, and I'm gonna turn this over to Josh just to conclude the evening. After he's done with this, we'll thank them for their time. We'll go over what we're gonna do next week in class, and then you guys are free to go, okay? Josh, all you.
All right, so I've been telling this story now, I think, for like 5 years in this class, right? And it's one of those stories that I heard it for the first time 10 or 15 years ago, and I said, oh my God, that is the key to sales, the key to business, the key to everything. So back in the 1970s, before I was born, before any of us were born, actually, there weren't computers yet. No, you didn't really have computers, right? And as a result, a lot of people don't know this, but the most dangerous moment in an airplane is actually takeoff and landing, right? In particular, birds hitting the plane. That's the #1 cause of crashes in the history of planes going down, are birds hitting the plane. Because if a bird hits a propeller, tilts the propeller just 1%, plane goes down. If a bird gets sucked into the engine, if it's a big enough bird, it will knock out the engine. If it's a single engine plane, plane goes down. So pilots actually spend an inordinate amount of time learning how to avoid birds. Crazy, right? And back in the 70s, now they do it with flight simulators and stuff, but back in the 70s, they don't have flight simulators. So they actually would use like a catapult and fling dead chickens at airplanes. You can't make this up, right? So they would fling these dead chickens at airplanes. And in Europe and France, Airbus, who's the big, French airplane maker, Airbus, as they're known here, they're talking at a conference in Europe about this chicken catapult. And Rail France says, we would love to borrow one of these chicken catapults, because as our train goes, if the conductor hits the brakes too hard, luggage falls down, people fall down, it's a problem. And if they don't hit it, the bird hits the plane, it could go through the windshield, it could break the train, it could cause big problems. Crazy, right? By the way, I've read like 5 different places. 3 say that this story is 100% true and the others say it's urban legend. It doesn't matter. We're going with it, right? So anyway, the conductor is doing this thing on the train. He's riding the train somewhere in rural France. In comes the first bird. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bam! Right through the glass of the train. Right through the back of the conductor car of the train, through 3 walls of seats, and literally embeds itself midway up in the wall in this car. And everyone freaks the shit out. This bird broke the train. And when you are nervous, when you don't understand what's happening in your business, you start pointing fingers, right? And everyone's pointing fingers at everybody else, right? The procurement company, you bought a bad glass, you bought bad trains. The conductor, you were going too fast, you were reckless, right? All the engineers, it was constructed poorly, bad design. No one could figure out what happened. No one could figure out why this went the way that it did. So they send reams and reams and reams of research to Airbus to try to understand what happened. And a week later, they get a 1-page letter back. And that letter says, "Dear Sir or Madam, please defrost the chicken." Okay. They broke a train. because they failed to follow the simplest step of all. Right? It was a chicken cannonball, right? I like this story because that's really sales. If you're not asking the right questions, if you're not getting to the root of what your customer wants, you have not defrosted the chicken. You are going to break that train. You are going to break that client. You're going to break their trust. When I worked at Procter & Gamble, I called on CVS. And when I got down there to Woonsocket, I was living in Boston. I was living, actually, you mentioned Andover. I was living in Reading, just a skosh south. They hated us. And finally, I was able to break through. Why do you hate us? Procter & Gamble keeps making all these decisions. And every one of these decisions hurts our buyers for making their bonus. So I asked my company, why do we keep making these decisions? They're like, it's way easier for the customer to handle. Said, wow, right? We're making all of these decisions that we don't want to be making, thinking it's right for our customer. And in making those decisions, our customer's not achieving their goals and not getting paid bonus. Didn't defrost the chicken, right? We get so obsessed with the close, we haven't followed the simplest things. Do you really know what your customer wants? Do you really know why they agreed to take the meeting with you? Or in the restaurant world, what their emotionality is as they sit down in front of you. You might be the only person they talk to that day in person, right? Defrost the chicken has to be the start of every sales process, right? Until you know what your customer wants and how you can add the most amount of value, you're worthless to them. So start with a little humbleness and a little indifference and ask some questions. You'd be amazed how easy it is to get people to open up. And when they open up and you bring back value-based solutions based specifically on what you heard, you're going to win more than you lose. And if you're winning more than you lose, you will continue to grow and you will continue to do tremendous things, as I know you all will, because that's Zev Young's track record, right? And that's where it all begins, right? So defrost the chicken and be well. Feel free to connect to both of us on LinkedIn. I'll speak for you, Jeremy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Love hearing from you guys after the class. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know if you stumble into any tough moments. Let us know if you need help simplifying a tough situation. But keep calm and defrost the chicken.